Something exploded inside Iran last week that Tehran absolutely does not want you to know about. Not damaged. Not a minor fire. Obliterated. Multiple facilities across 3 provinces went up in flames within a 72-hour window, and the Iranian regime is scrambling to control the narrative. By the time we are done here, you will understand exactly what Iran is hiding, why they are hiding it, and what this means for the balance of power in the Middle East. Welcome to States News. If this is your first time here, subscribe and turn on notifications, because what we are covering today is not making headlines in mainstream media, but it represents one of the most significant developments in the shadow war between Israel, the United States, and Iran that we have seen in months. I'm going to show you exactly what exploded, where it happened, and why Iran's silence is more revealing than any official statement they could make. We will cover the specific facilities that were hit, the technical capabilities required to strike them, and the strategic implications that extend far beyond these immediate explosions. We will examine why Iran's defensive doctrine just suffered a catastrophic failure, how this connects to broader patterns of covert operations, and what second-order effects this creates for Iran's proxy networks across the region. By the end, you will understand why these explosions represent not just tactical strikes, but a fundamental shift in how vulnerable Iran's most critical infrastructure has become. To understand why these explosions matter, you need to understand what Iran has been building for the past 2 decades. Iran's strategic doctrine rests on a concept called strategic depth through asymmetric capability. They cannot match the United States or Israel in conventional military terms, so they have invested billions in 2 things: hardened underground facilities that are supposed to be invulnerable to airstrikes, and a distributed network of proxy forces that allow them to project power without direct confrontation. The facilities that exploded last week are part of this hardened infrastructure. These are not ordinary military bases. These are reinforced bunker complexes buried deep underground, designed specifically to survive precision strikes. Iran learned lessons from the 2007 Israeli strike on Syria's Al-Kibar reactor and the repeated strikes on nuclear facilities during the Stuxnet era. They responded by going deeper, building facilities with multiple layers of concrete and earth, positioning them in remote locations that complicate targeting, and surrounding them with air defense systems. The strategic logic is simple. If your most critical capabilities are invulnerable to enemy strikes, you can continue operations even under sustained attack. If your nuclear enrichment, missile production, and drone manufacturing can survive bombardment, you maintain deterrence. The hardened facility network is Iran's insurance policy against regime change or military defeat. But insurance policies only work if they cannot be voided. What happened last week suggests that Iran's policy just got canceled. Iran operates as a theocratic republic where ultimate power rests with the supreme leader, currently Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who is 84 years old and increasingly frail. Below him sits a complex power structure, including the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which controls not just military operations, but vast swaths of Iran's economy. The IRGC answers directly to Khamenei, not to the elected president, giving it extraordinary autonomy. The IRGC's External Operations Wing, the Quds Force, manages relationships with proxy groups across the region: Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. These proxies give Iran reach without the risks of direct confrontation. When Hezbollah fires rockets at Israel, Iran maintains plausible deniability. When Houthis attack shipping in the Red Sea, Iran is not officially at war. This proxy strategy requires constant supply. Hezbollah needs precision-guided missiles. The Houthis need anti-ship missiles and drones. Iraqi militias need rockets and mortars. All of this hardware gets manufactured in Iran, much of it in the hardened facilities we are discussing. Disrupt the manufacturing, and you do not just hurt Iran. You strangle their entire regional strategy. Now here is the baseline most people do not understand. Iran has spent over 15 years and an estimated $20 billion building a network of approximately 130 hardened facilities across the country. These sites include nuclear enrichment facilities at Natanz and Fordo, missile production complexes near Isfahan and Parchin, drone manufacturing facilities in multiple provinces, and command bunkers throughout Tehran and surrounding regions. The deepest of these facilities sit 200 feet underground. The bunkers at Fordo are built into a mountain near Qom, protected by 300 feet of rock and reinforced concrete. Standard bunker buster munitions from previous generations could not touch them. That was the whole point. Build deep enough, and you become untouchable. Geographic distribution matters too. Iran deliberately scattered these facilities across different provinces to complicate any strike campaign. Hitting 1 or 2 sites is a tactical operation. Hitting dozens simultaneously requires resources and coordination that only a few nations on Earth can muster. On March 14, 2026, at approximately 2:47 a.m. local time, an explosion tore through a facility near Parchin, 30 miles southeast of Tehran. Iranian state media did not report it. Social media accounts in the region did. Videos posted by local residents showed a massive fireball lighting up the night sky, followed by secondary explosions that continued for nearly 40 minutes. The Iranian government said nothing. 2 days later, on March 16th, a similar explosion occurred at a site near Isfahan, approximately 200 miles south of Tehran. This facility is known to house missile production capabilities. Again, social media footage emerged showing fires visible from miles away. Again, Iranian officials remained silent. On March 17th, a third explosion hit a facility in Khuzestan province in southwestern Iran. This site is associated with drone manufacturing, specifically the Shahed 136 loitering munitions that Russia has been using extensively in Ukraine. The pattern was identical. Massive explosion, sustained secondary fires, zero official acknowledgement. 3 facilities, 3 provinces, 72 hours. That is not coincidence. That is a coordinated strike campaign. The immediate tactical significance is the destruction of production capacity. Each of these facilities represented years of investment and specialized equipment. You cannot just rebuild a precision missile production line in a warehouse. The machinery required is specialized, often sourced from foreign suppliers through sanctions-evading networks that take months or years to establish. The technical expertise to operate these facilities takes years to develop. When you destroy a missile production facility, you are not just destroying the missiles currently in production. You are destroying the ability to produce missiles for months or potentially years. Every missile Iran cannot build is one less missile for Hezbollah, one less for the Houthis, one less for militias in Iraq. The drone manufacturing facility in Khuzestan is particularly significant. Iran has been producing Shahed 136 drones at a rate estimated by Western intelligence at approximately 400 per month. Russia has been purchasing these drones in bulk for use against Ukrainian infrastructure. A disruption to that production line does not just affect Iran. It affects Russia's ability to sustain its long-range strike campaign in Ukraine. Think about what that means for a moment. A strike inside Iran has direct tactical implications for a completely different war theater 1,500 miles away. That is the nature of modern interconnected conflicts. But the tactical damage is only the beginning. The strategic implications cut deeper. These facilities were supposed to be invulnerable. Iran invested billions in hardening them specifically to survive strikes. If they can be destroyed, what does that say about Iran's entire defensive doctrine? It says that technological development has outpaced defensive infrastructure. When Iran built these bunkers 15 years ago, the most advanced bunker buster in the American arsenal was the GBU-28, a 5,000-pound laser-guided bomb capable of penetrating approximately 100 feet of earth and concrete. Effective against many targets, but insufficient against the deepest Iranian facilities. Then came the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP. This weapon weighs 30,000 pounds, is 20 feet long, and can penetrate over 200 feet of hardened concrete before detonating. The MOP was specifically designed to hold at risk the deepest Iranian bunkers. But the MOP requires a B-2 stealth bomber to deliver it, limiting operational flexibility. Now, according to reports from defense analysts, the United States has developed and deployed the GBU-72 Advanced 5K Penetrator. This weapon weighs 5,000 pounds like the older GBU-28, but incorporates new warhead designs and penetrator technology that dramatically increases effectiveness. Critically, the GBU-72 can be carried by F-15E Strike Eagles and F-35 stealth fighters, giving strike planners far more flexibility than the B-2-only MOP. If the March strikes used GBU-72s, and current evidence suggests they did, then Iran's bunker network just became obsolete. The insurance policy they thought protected their most critical capabilities no longer protects anything. This creates a second-order strategic effect that Iran's leadership absolutely understands. Deterrence relies on capability that cannot be neutralized. If your adversary knows they cannot destroy your nuclear facilities, you have leverage in negotiations. If they know they can destroy those facilities at will, your leverage evaporates. Iran has consistently maintained that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, while preserving the option to weaponize if necessary. That option serves as an implicit deterrent against regime change efforts. But if Israel and the United States can now strike even the deepest facilities with conventional munitions, the nuclear deterrent option becomes far less valuable. You cannot build a nuclear weapon if your enrichment facilities can be reduced to rubble before you complete the process. This fundamentally alters the strategic calculus in any future confrontation. Iran can no longer assume its critical infrastructure is safe from conventional attack. That changes everything about how they must think about escalation, negotiation, and risk. Let me show you why this connects to something even larger. Iran's proxy network depends on continuous resupply. Hezbollah's arsenal of precision-guided missiles did not materialize from nowhere. They were manufactured in Iran, smuggled through Syria, and distributed in Lebanon. The Houthis' anti-ship ballistic missiles came from Iranian production lines. Hamas's rocket capabilities were enhanced through Iranian technology transfer. Disrupt the production, and you start strangling the entire network. Hezbollah has been firing precision missiles at Israeli infrastructure. Every missile fired is one less in the arsenal. If Iran cannot replace those missiles because the production facilities are destroyed, Hezbollah's capabilities degrade over time. The same logic applies to every Iranian proxy. This is economic warfare through kinetic action. You are not trying to destroy the proxy forces directly. You are cutting off their supply lines at the source. It is a strategy of attrition that operates on a timeline of months and years rather than days and weeks. And here is where it gets genuinely interesting. Iran's response to these strikes has been almost complete silence. They acknowledged a fire at one facility and blamed it on an electrical malfunction. For the other two, they have said nothing at all. That silence is more revealing than any official statement could be. When Israel struck Iran's consulate in Damascus in April 2024, Iran responded with a massive drone and missile barrage. When the United States killed Qasem Soleimani in January 2020, Iran launched ballistic missiles at U.S. bases in Iraq. Iran typically responds to provocations with escalation because their strategic doctrine emphasizes retaliation as deterrence. If you hit us, we hit back harder. That is the message they want to send. So why the silence now? Because acknowledging the strikes means acknowledging the vulnerability. If Iran admits that facilities they claimed were invulnerable were just destroyed, they admit strategic failure. They admit that billions of dollars in defensive infrastructure did not work. They admit that their adversaries have capabilities Iran cannot counter. The regime is making a calculated decision that silence is less damaging than admission. They are hoping the story dies in the absence of official confirmation. They are banking on the fact that most international media will not pursue a story without government confirmation. They are trying to control the narrative through the absence of narrative. But silence has costs too. Iran's population is not stupid. Videos of the explosions circulated on social media before the government could suppress them. People in Parchin, Isfahan, and Khuzestan know what happened. They saw the fires. They heard the explosions. When the regime says nothing or offers transparently false explanations about electrical fires, it erodes domestic credibility. Iran's population is already deeply dissatisfied with regime governance. The 2022 protests that followed Mahsa Amini's death revealed the depth of that discontent. Every time the regime is forced to hide military failures, it reinforces the perception of weakness and dishonesty that fuels opposition movements. Now let us acknowledge what we do not know because intellectual honesty matters. We do not have confirmed attribution for these strikes. Israel has not claimed responsibility. The United States has not confirmed involvement. It is possible these were sabotage operations rather than airstrikes. It is possible that internal Iranian opposition groups or foreign intelligence services operating on the ground conducted these operations. The technology required for penetrating strikes suggests state-level capabilities, but sabotage is also a possibility. Explosives planted by agents inside the facilities could explain the precision and timing of the detonations. Cyber attacks that caused industrial accidents represent another possibility, though less likely given the pattern across multiple sites. We also do not know the extent of the damage. Videos show fires and explosions, but we lack satellite imagery or insider assessments that would confirm whether these facilities are fully destroyed or merely damaged. If the facilities are damaged but repairable, the strategic impact diminishes considerably. Iranian engineers might be able to restore operations within months if the core infrastructure survived. That would change the calculation entirely. A temporary disruption is very different from permanent destruction. There is also the question of whether Iran has redundant production capabilities we do not know about. Intelligence assessments provide incomplete pictures. Iran may have backup facilities or distributed production capacity that can absorb the loss of these specific sites. Without comprehensive intelligence, we are working with partial information, and we should consider Iran's perspective. From Tehran's viewpoint, these strikes, if externally conducted, represent acts of war by nations Iran is not formally at war with. Israel and Iran have been engaged in shadow conflict for years, but there are rules to that game. Covert strikes are one thing. Repeated large-scale destruction of military facilities crosses escalatory thresholds. Iran may be preparing a response that has not yet materialized. The silence could be strategic patience rather than weakness. They may be gathering intelligence on exactly how the strikes were conducted before determining how to respond. Escalation does not have to be immediate to be effective. Iranian strategic thinkers could also interpret these strikes as confirmation that diplomatic engagement is futile. If your adversaries are willing to destroy your facilities regardless of negotiation progress, why negotiate at all? This could push Iran toward more aggressive postures rather than de-escalation. These alternative interpretations deserve consideration. The framework we have presented is based on available evidence, but that evidence is incomplete. We are analyzing a developing situation where much remains unknown. So what has fundamentally changed here? Iran's defensive doctrine, built over 2 decades and costing billions of dollars, just proved inadequate against current strike capabilities. The facilities Iran believed were invulnerable are not. The insurance policy they thought protected their most critical capabilities offers no protection. This changes the strategic environment in several ways. First, it gives Israel and the United States escalation dominance in any future crisis. If Iran threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz, or accelerates nuclear enrichment, or dramatically escalates through proxies, they now know that their critical infrastructure can be destroyed with conventional weapons. That knowledge constrains Iranian decision-making. Second, it accelerates the timeline of capability degradation for Iranian proxies. If production facilities remain offline for months, Hezbollah's precision missile inventory starts depleting. The Houthis' anti-ship capabilities diminish. Iraqi militias lack resupply. This does not eliminate these groups, but it weakens them gradually. Third, it exposes Iran's domestic political vulnerabilities. The regime's legitimacy rests partly on projecting strength and defending Iranian sovereignty. When facilities explode and the government either stays silent or lies about electrical fires, it reinforces perceptions of weakness. That matters in a country where large segments of the population oppose the regime. The broader pattern here extends beyond Iran. We are watching the evolution of modern warfare, where the line between covert action and conventional strikes blurs. Drones, cyber weapons, sabotage operations, and precision munitions create new options between diplomacy and open war. Iran is experiencing what that evolution means for nations that rely on static defenses against adversaries with technological superiority. Looking forward, watch for several indicators. First, Iranian production rates for drones and missiles over the next 3 to 6 months. If those rates drop significantly, it confirms the damage was substantial. Second, Iranian proxy operations across the region. If Hezbollah, Houthis, or Iraqi militias reduce the pace or sophistication of attacks, it may reflect supply constraints. Third, Iranian diplomatic posture. If Tehran suddenly becomes more willing to negotiate on nuclear issues or regional security, it could indicate they recognize their vulnerability. Also, watch for Iranian efforts to relocate critical facilities or build new defenses. They will not abandon hardened infrastructure, but they may try to go deeper or develop mobile production capabilities that are harder to target. That response timeline tells you how seriously they take this threat. And watch for any Iranian retaliation. If these strikes were conducted by Israel or the United States, Iran will likely respond eventually. The form of that response matters. Cyber attacks, proxy strikes, or direct military action each signal different escalatory calculations. The explosions inside Iran last week were not random accidents. They were not minor incidents. They represent a coordinated campaign that exposed fundamental vulnerabilities in Iran's strategic infrastructure. The regime is hiding this because acknowledging it means acknowledging failure. But silence does not change the facts on the ground. Those facilities burned. That production capacity is offline. And the balance of power in the Middle East just shifted in ways Tehran cannot afford to admit. If this analysis helped you understand what is actually happening beyond the headlines, subscribe and turn on notifications. We are covering these developments in real time, and what happens next in Iran will determine the trajectory of regional security for years to come. This story is not over. It is just beginning.